All right, let's dive into tiny habits. This is a totally game-changing idea from a Stanford behavior scientist, BJ Fogg, and it's all about one thing: how to build habits that actually stick. So right off the bat, Fogg hits us with this idea that sounds, well, kind of crazy, right? He says that making big changes in your life doesn't have to be a struggle. Nope, he says it can be easy and even fun. Now, if that sounds like the exact opposite of every New Year's resolution you've ever made, you're going to want to hear this.
Okay, let's get real for a minute. Have you ever been super pumped to start a new habit? You're going to work out, you're going to eat healthy, you're going to meditate every single day, and then a week or two later, you just stop? And when that happens, who do you blame? Yeah, probably yourself, right? You think, I just don't have enough willpower.
Well, if that sounds familiar, you are definitely not alone. Fogg talks about this really painful gap between who we want to be and what we actually do. And you know what? That gap is where so much frustration and guilt comes from for, pretty much all of us. But here's the big idea, the one that honestly changes everything. Fogg says that when you fail to build a habit, it's not your fault. Let me say that again. You are not the problem. It's not a personal flaw, it's a design flaw. The way you were trying to build the habit was just set up to fail. And once you get that, everything shifts.
So, how do we fix that design flaw? Well, first we got to understand how our brains are actually wired. And that brings us to the real secret sauce of Fogg's work, something he calls the behavior model.
Okay, this looks like a math equation, but stick with me, it's super simple and powerful. B equals MAO. All it means is that for any behavior to happen, literally any behavior, three things have to happen at the exact same time: motivation, ability, and a prompt.
So let's unpack that. M is your motivation, how much you want to do the thing. A is for ability, basically how easy is it to actually do it. And P is the prompt, which is just a fancy word for the trigger, the little nudge that tells you, do it now. Here's the key. If even one of those three things is missing, guess what? The behavior just isn't going to happen, period. And this isn't just theory. It plays out in the real world all the time. Fogg gives a perfect example. Remember that Red Cross text campaign after the earthquake in Haiti? Think about it. Motivation? It was through the roof. People desperately wanted to help. Ability? It couldn't have been easier. You just had to reply to a text. And the prompt? It was the text message landing right on your phone. See? M, A, and P all lined up perfectly. And the result? Millions of dollars were raised overnight.
Okay, so if B equals map explains why we do things, how can we actually use that to build good habits? Well, that's where we get to the really practical part, the tiny habits method.
The whole method is just a super simple three-step recipe. First, you need an anchor moment. That's just a habit you already have, something you do automatically, like brushing your teeth or pouring your morning coffee. Then, you tack on your new tiny behavior. And the key word here is tiny. We're talking less than 30 seconds. And finally, the third step, you celebrate. Instantly.
So instead of a fuzzy goal like, I should floss more, your recipe becomes laser-focused and dead simple. After I brush my teeth, I will floss one tooth. Just one. Think about it, it's so easy to do that it almost doesn't matter if you're motivated or not. The ability part is maxed out. Now, out of all those steps, there's one that Fogg says is the most important, and it's the one we almost always forget: celebration. He literally calls this the secret sauce of the whole thing.
So why is that so important? Because when you celebrate, even in a small way, you create a real feeling of success. It's like a little win. That feeling gives your brain a little shot of a chemical called dopamine, and that's what actually rewires your brain and locks the habit in. It's what makes it automatic. He has this great line, emotions create habits.
And look, we're not talking about buying yourself a new car. It doesn't have to be some big, complicated reward. In fact, the book has over 100 different ways you can celebrate. The only thing that matters is that it feels genuinely good and authentic to you.
Seriously, it can be anything. You could do a little fist pump. You could say awesome out loud or even just in your head. You could picture some fireworks going off. You could even just smile at yourself in the mirror. The whole point is to feel that little spark of success right then and there.
Okay, I know what you might be thinking. Seriously? Flossing one tooth? Doing 2 push-ups? How is that going to change my life? It sounds too small to matter, right? Well, let's talk about how these tiny little sparks can actually start a huge fire.
So let me tell you about this guy, Sukumar. For 17 years, that's a long time. He tried and failed to get in shape. And every time he'd blame himself, thinking he just didn't have the willpower. But then, he tried this tiny habits method, and it completely changed the game for him.
So what was the magic bullet? What was the huge, life-altering habit he started? It was this. After I brush my teeth, I will do 2 push-ups. That's it. Just 2. Sounds ridiculous, right?
But that little tiny seed, because it was so easy to do, and because he celebrated that little win every day, it started to grow. And it grew naturally, without forcing it. Today, that little 2 push-up habit has turned into a consistent 50 push-ups, which kicks off his entire workout routine. The behavior grew because it started from a root that was super small and easy to keep alive.
And this is the really deep reason why this whole thing works so well. It's not just about the action. Every time you get a small win, you're not just building a habit, you're building momentum. But even more important than that, you start to change how you see yourself. You go from thinking, I'm the kind of person who always gives up, to, hey, I'm actually the kind of person who shows up and does the thing. Your identity starts to shift.
Okay, so let's bring this all back to you, right here, right now. So the question is really simple. Now that you know the recipe, find an anchor, make the new habit super tiny, and then celebrate, what is one tiny thing you could start? Not tomorrow, not next week, today. And as you're thinking about that, I want you to remember the most important takeaway from all of this. It's that you change best by feeling good, not by feeling bad. So forget about willpower. Forget about beating yourself up when you slip. The real key to change is to set yourself up for small wins and to let that feeling of success carry you forward, one tiny habit at a time.